Philosophical conversation with Kevin and David. Philosophical conversation. Philosophical conversations with Kevin and David. Philosophical conversations. Hi, internets. What's going on? This is I Am David Long. I'm here today with my good friend Kevin Offlerbach for our very first philosophical talk. Today, we're going to be talking about something I posted on Facebook a little while ago about elections and voting and whatnot. So I said, why I will not vote. If you want to know the truth or what is good, better, the best, the way to find out is never going to be by taking a vote. Popular does not equal good or true. Me voting might help cause short-term results, making us slightly more comfortable in America. But I am fundamentally against voting as a decision-making process. The more broken the system is, the more likely people will be to abandon it for a better one. So I am also okay with the fact that our system is totally broken, and I'm fine with it getting worse. It's outdated and it needs to be replaced. The more obvious that is, the more fed up people get with it, the better. What's important to me is whether one thinks or cares about shit or not whether you vote, because you know everyone says if you don't vote, you don't run. The only vote that really counts anyways in a capitalistic system is where you put your time and money. That is what you support. In my opinion, our current political situation is mostly just like a soap opera to make people distracted and feel like they are heard. But my good friend Kevin, he had some concerns, and he was telling me that he was slightly upset that more people hadn't come out to vote. I know a lot of people feel that way. Probably not a lot of people really fully agree with what I'm saying, but we're going to have it out. So I'm going to toss it over to my friend Kevin, and he's going to tell me why I'm wrong.
I think the reason that you're wrong is largely to do with genetics. I mean, you're just kind of genetically predisposed to being wrong. I think there's like a wrong-itis, and you need some kind of wrongectomy.
This is you, right? Hello?
Hold on.
Kevin? It's still, you're still doing it. Tip the screen down a little or something.
Are you meerkatting?
He's like yeah, he's still meerkatting.
He's meerkatting.
I'm Kevin.
Starting over with this, I think that you're right to say that voting is never going to make us arrive true based on the process of voting. I think the process of voting is, it's potentially mob rule, and it doesn't give directionality to where that voting energy goes to. I don't think that it doesn't give them any greater metaphysical weight. Before the right to marry someone of a different race existed, it wasn't us voting it into being had very little actual effect on the metaphysical value of the thing. It just means that we consented to it as a society. And there were things that preceded the integration of the schools and other things like that. There were unpopular things that would be viewed now as activist judges or activist presidents going against the public will for something that we now recognize as public good. But I think that voting, while it is a clunky process that needs to be overhauled, is one of the best things that we have at present for making decisions. We don't have a process in play yet that can make decisions based on common standards of the public good. Um, it sucks that people are so disenfranchised with voting at this point, because there are a lot of reasons that they should be voting. And if you doubt the value of voting or of votes, then you need to question why so many billions of dollars were spent buying them. The people that went out and voted this last election, every person they had hundreds of dollars spent to advertise these particular politicians, and more money is spent buying their votes once they're in office. So votes work. Votes have power. We're just allowing that power to go to those who have the most wealth. And in this kind of corrupt process. I mean, sure, the electorate is not as well informed as they should be, but the idea isn't to take away the power of them to participate and make decisions in their overall society, but to rather inform them and educate them so that they can make the right decisions. And, you know, of course we would pick representatives better who have scientific expertise in these things rather than just a bunch of lawyers and bankers to make these decisions. You know, Neil deGrasse Tyson makes the point about how you look at the careers of these people who are elected to public office. They aren't scientists and economists and anthropologists. They're lawyer, banker, lawyer, billionaire. You know, these people are land developers. You know, they're in it for their own good, and we allow the smoothest talkers to represent the good of the elite over the good of the public, because they're able to press certain buttons on us, because we're infatuated with personality, because we have certain emotional triggers, whether it's our bleeding heart or our when we see the homeless, or our sick stomach when we see gays kissing, or, you know, whatever fear that they can use, or outrage, or some kind of illusion of being more moral than the other people. You know, Charlie Crist wants to kill babies. Vote for Rick Scott. He loves babies. You know, like, that type of shit works because people have simplistic psychologies. If you say something 4 times in a conversation, it'll be primed in their consciousness, and they'll remember that later, whether or not that they remember the source. That's why movies are so dangerous in many regards, because they change the way that we view the world. You know, the mean world syndrome, George Gervner, ideas of like the representation of different races and genders on screen. It'll affect the way that we see the world, but also in very specific ways in terms of beliefs. So we're more apt to vote for people that are tough on crime if we watch more media that scares us. But we're also, you know, apt to have particular incorrect beliefs as a result of the media that we take in, both in terms of like the opinion news and also just like narrative, like TV stuff or action movies that are using these caricature stereotypes in order to, you know, give us a certain thrill. But it's always going to paint the way that we see the world. And the problem is that the current electorate only has a very narrow frame of reference as it relates to the issues that affect them directly and indirectly. And so flooded with information, so distracted by the fact that we have to work 50 hours a week just to get by. And we want to eke out a narrative self within our monkey sphere, you know, 150 people that we can care about, and past that is just too much.
So, are you agreeing with me?
No, what I would never do that. To put a fine point on it is, I think that rather than dismantling the process and elevating that into hands that can be corrupted just like the process that we see now, and depriving people of even the illusion of participation, rather encourage greater participation. We should be like those Scandinavian countries that take money, corporate money, out of politics and limit the types of political advertising you can do, play up enfranchisement, involvement, and they get 70, 75, 80% voter participation. We get barely 50. And I mean, of course, they're going to be, advocating for what they see as their own self-interest. But I think that what we have in America, especially, is an atavistic system of competition and libertarianism to the point of libertarianism as it relates to truth. Libertarianism, it's all private property, all personal property, and that allows people to have their own private worlds, private illusions, private pursuits, at the direct expense of other people, and normalizing that. And I think that if we felt like there was a greater sense of the common good, and the common good wasn't merely the best thing about America wasn't merely that it allows us the freedom to have all of our own ideas, to take our kids out of school and homeschool, and to pursue our own private interests at the expense of these other people and these other groups who aren't like us, building up more of a communitarian sense of society where you manifest actual kind of grassroots community. I think that the people that are profiting now, like in the last 6 years, 90% of the new wealth that has been created has been aggregated into the hands of the top 2%. And division is something, the more that they can get you not caring about how much your fellow person makes, like minimum wage wise, or where your devices come from, Yeah, it sucks that these Chinese kids have to make it, but they're Chinese kids and whatever. Like the more they're able to pull you into this atomistic exploitative environment where it's tough shit for everybody who isn't privileged or doesn't have who you can't identify with. I think that I'm not saying that we have to be Scandinavia. I'm not saying that we have to be placid as Iceland or anything like that. But I think, and that homogeneity, I think, can be toxic in its own way and stifling and fucking bad. But I think that in most countries that we would think are doing it right have a greater sense of participation and less idea that freedom is allowing corporations to freely exploit, because that's what America is all about.
Let me jump in here real quick and comment on some of the stuff you're saying. I really like what you're saying about the problems with extreme libertarianism, but I do see some other things that I find problematic. I think it's supposed to be that something like 70% of the world's population is at ethnocentric and lower stages of development. And so if that's true and we have a popular vote, it seems like it's going to be more the case that stupid people get their stupid people in and have their stupid rules. And I mean, if it's really, just about what's popular, then what do you need my vote for anyways? Because no matter what's popular is going to go through, and the only way that my vote would even matter is if I agreed with the majority of people who were voting, and at that point, who cares? The other thing that I would want to say is like things like the minimum wage. A lot of people might be down to increase that, but part of the problem with that is, is that the people at the top aren't necessarily going to take less of a wage now. What they're saying is, oh, well, that's not going to come out of my pocket. That's going to come out of the pocket of the consumer. So it's still coming out of the same pocket. And all that does is just increase inflation, create more depth, and it just seems like we're going to be back to, you know, one of these big financial busts, and you know, until the whole thing just falls through anyways. I don't know exactly if that totally relates to what we're talking about today, but I mean, even if something like that we did see was good as a majority, you know what I mean, and we tried it and we try to make a change for it, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually good, like you were saying before. You know what I mean? At least, I mean, it might actually further lead to our downfall even sooner. You know what I mean? If we don't have some kind of a rational way to figure this shit out, then it's still going to be just might makes right leadership, whether it be the top-down legislation of taste from your freaking Koch brothers, or some bottom-up mob rule from, you know, these stupid, you know, uninformed, uneducated majority. What I would ask you, I guess, as a challenge back would be, what would you say are like the best and worst case scenario, pro and con? Like, what could my vote do, like, that would be the best good? Like, what are the greatest things that you think that we could achieve by voting? And what are the worst things you think that would happen if we don't vote? Let me unmute you and you can answer.
Cut his mic. All right. What I think.
No,
what
shut
I think,
up. Shut up. Cut his mic. Cut his fucking mic.
September 14th, you want to know what I was doing?
Shut up.
Oh, please don't tell me to shut up.
In respect for your father.
It's a small minority.
Cut his mic. I'm not going to dress you down anymore. Out of respect for your father. We'll be back in a moment with more of the factor.
We're done?
We're done.
all right. So I
Your father would be you. You're a bad person.
Bill.
Get this
Bill.
clown off. Oh yeah.
Grapefruits.
Of course.
Yeah. Get some. The best case scenario is that individuals feel enfranchised in the process of making decisions that affect their lives. I mean, I think we're always going to be relying on experts in one form or another to make decisions for us. Experts in computers and whatnot. And working with that knowledge, we understand that at least some form of the decision of how society is supposed to be does and should reside with the people who the rules apply to. You know, and however that gets parsed out, you know, because we can't go back to, you know, ideas of the emperor as God or whatever making the best decisions for all.
That would still be top-down legislation of taste.
Yeah.
I think we should get away from the purely top-down or bottom-up might make right kind of decision-making processes.
Sure. So I think that we can meet in the middle, and the process can be tweaked more.
Yeah.
But I think we maybe should vote on less things, but more the ends that we want to accomplish, and then go to the experts to figure out how to accomplish that, rather than voting for, you know, a particular thing here or there. Maybe more like, you know, how do you want this story to go? Do we value forests? Do we value lakes? Do we value, you know, technological progress?
You're gonna let people vote elephants off the world or something? To me, that they're some kind of rational argument about what counts as our common ends. You know what I mean? I think that it's pretty much come to most people's awareness at this point that we can't continue to ignore the environmental problems and just act like all of our problems are human problems. And I think, that's one of the problems with saying that we're just going to, like, figure it out and vote on what our goals are. I think, to me, that a society is a certain kind of project. You know what I mean? And I think that what a lot of people would vote for might be antithetical to that kind of project, or what might be good for that kind of a project. That's why, I do think I agree with you that we need to get experts to figure out how to work towards, these ends that we agree are common. Let me go ahead and read to you a response. Someone asked, "I'm curious, if not voting, how do you think things should be run?" I said, it's a very good question. It's a complicated answer. I'll try and keep it short and simple, and hopefully say enough to answer your question. We want an open, transparent, rational, refinable, emergent decision-making process working towards world-centric ends. So, we are talking about putting some kind of value towards it, and not just like, well, who knows what it will be, So there do have to be some kind of core agreements. I don't know how in detail they'd have to be, but I would have to think that we'd have to figure out at least some kind of way that it was more than just humans that were included in these factors, and that we realize that we have to be responsible for the ecosystems that we live in and stuff. That's a major problem, and that's not one that can really be solved by one particular government. That's going to be something that we as a planet have to solve together, and we're going to have to really get past a lot of our nationalistic and ethnocentric divisiveness to be able to get some of that going. I said there are people who are working on different versions of these types of integral governance systems, and different variations are even starting to be used in different types of businesses all over the world. These new systems are still in development. I personally have been trained in a variant called Colab, but a very popular version is called holacracy, which is based on voluntarism. The main way that these systems function is by processing tensions. The systems sees tension as a way to tap into ways the system could be better. Then it processes those tensions into something testable or actionable. Instead of voting, I would have us process our actual tensions. Instead of picking red team or blue team, which is at least divisive, I would have us process our tensions through some kind of online interface. So I would still try to use technology, submit them to some kind of open, rational process with overarching standards, overseen by integrally informed leaders and peer review. And I think good ideas can come from anywhere. I think even stupid people have good ideas quite often, and I think we need to be able to tap into those and be able to decide what a good idea is and what it's not. We need to bring the human conversation online like never before. There will always be disagreements, always. But at least with rational standards, test, and peer review, we can solve real problems rationally. On the record, do tests, and start to engage these problems instead of just disagreeing, yelling loudly, hurling insults back and forth, and agreeing to disagree. Much like in science, we may not be able to find the ultimate answers to our questions immediately, but over time and with tests, we will be able to get closer and closer to something that works better and better. And maybe that's the best that we can really do. I guess what I'm talking about could still be categorized as a form of democracy, because it would be ruled by the people, and it would be a process that everybody could engage in. And it would still probably be a representative democracy because it recognizes natural growth hierarchies and maturity, like a lot like we have now with rational worlds, but only with like rational world-centric standards, not reducing not reducing what's good to and true, and true to what's popular. That would be something more like what I would advocate for, and it seems to me like something like that is probably inevitable to some extent. And there are people who are testing these things now. I'm not trying to blame anybody, humanity's come a long way, and it's really only now that we have the technology that we have that any of this stuff has even begun to be possible. So, I'm not saying, these people are all just jerks and they're trying to, I do think that a lot of people who are involved in the system are really trying to do their best. But I don't know. Did you answer my question about best and worst case scenario?
I started to.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So yeah, I mean, worst case scenario is obviously Nazis or Sharia law or something like that getting voted into, the mob rule issue, of course. But at the same time, I think that any process that we have is going to have to involve voting in some way or another. I think maybe broader guidelines or parsing particular issues on a more direct level, like direct voting rather than representational voting, because representatives can get bought and sold and whatnot.
I mean, like, I'm for representation. Actually, I would like to have some kind of standard of who's wise enough to make those decisions. Let them vote, and then let the public, add suggestions and ideas or whatever.
Yeah, and that would be part of the overhaul that I would be into is maybe have people who are better informed about the issues and actually have a better grasp on them, make those decisions when we talk about wanting a particular outcome, even and talk about the limits of the particular outcomes that we're maybe comfortable with. But I think it's a combination of focusing the energies of the electorate on the decisions that really matter and affect stuff, while at the same time enfranchising them in such a way that they feel part of this process enough to stand by the decisions that get made. I think a lot of people have just kind of lost hope in the process because it seems like such an adversarial, bought and sold thing that's already, taken out of the hands of the... Yeah, people don't... I think the reason that millennials didn't turn out for this election is because they don't feel like they're part of the process, and they've only got the choice between a giant douche and a turd sandwich.
Turd sandwich, you say?
I know it's your favorite meal, so...
Tasty turd sandwich. What do you got there?
Sydney Browns.
What do you think?
Sydney
Not your worst and best case scenario, but like this. Let's say this election. What do you think would be the worst and best case scenario of this election? Seems to me the worst case, like Republicans get in office, they fight the good things that we got going, and then the best case scenario would be like we get slightly more comfortable, like weed gets legalized, gay marriage is okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's progress in tiny ways and everything. You know, like I don't see massive disenfranchisement or people like. It's kind of like when people tell me, like, you know, smash the state, and if the floor fell out, we'd self-organize into natural systems, and we make decisions based on what really mattered. And I don't think that that's the case. I think that we're still very kind of atomized. We don't know how to engage with the process. So if all that shit was taken away, we wouldn't know what to do. We wouldn't know how to organize ourselves. We'd still be adversarial. We would just have less ability to engage in any process whatsoever. The process should be structured in such a way where it does concentrate certain decisions in people's area of expertise, and certain things maybe shouldn't be voted on, like certain rights or whatever. But I think that progress is going to be necessarily slow. I think that people should be encouraged to participate more rather than told that they're not at a developmental level to participate and everything is for their own good. So just shut up and take it. You know, I mean, I think both I think every political stripe fears a nanny state full of, you know, positive liberties they don't want and negative liberties that get taken away for a good that they didn't consent to. You know, I think that's a concern that we have to engage with, and the fact that I think that so many people feel disenfranchised is not going to be answered by like a UN that makes, you know, unilateral decisions and then tries to implement them. Based on, you know, conceptions of what we know to be the common good, even if you know we were able to be, you know, like really sure that this is what was the best fucking thing to do.
It seems to me like progress, to be honest with you. It seems to me like a way of appeasing the masses. It doesn't really deal with any of our, you know, big picture or fundamental problems. It doesn't address haves and have-nots or, you know, our problems with the environment or our, you know, limited health care systems and shit like that, like the wealth gap and all. I mean maybe you're saying like it could. I'm personally not saying that we should just impose things on people. I think that there should be some kind of a open, rational process that people can engage in and say, this is bullshit. And if you get like 5 or 10 people saying the same thing is bullshit, it's starting to be kind of obvious that there's some bullshit there. And that needs to be addressed. You know, I think that every tension that the people, you know, would give into this system or something like that should be processed. Yes, I think some of it should just be pretty much rejected as, you know, illogical or irrational, if that's what it is, you know. But if they have good ideas and good, you know, I don't think that, like I said earlier, I think that good ideas can come from anywhere. I think a 5-year-old kid can be walking around a store and be like, oh, you know what would be a good idea if we had gumballs up here by the front. Like, I don't think that's, you know, beyond anybody to have a good idea. I just think that there needs to be some kind of way of processing these ideas, these tensions that we all have, and through some kind of a fair and open process that everybody can see and go and look at and participate in and comment on, maybe more so than just yes or no, this way or that way, and not even like, you know, like on a, not even to elect a representative. You know, I wouldn't even want the general population voting on that. I don't think that the people who are making those decision-making processes towards the ends that things have been decided to go to are like running things in a top-down way based on their preference. It's an open, transparent thing where, you know, they're trying to figure out the best way to achieve this goal, and so they're, you know, like you were saying, these experts who are, you know, scientists, and they know about the different factors in play, and so they can make a test. We'll try this. We'll see if this will work, and we'll measure its results, and those results will be public. And then and then other people can come in and be like, yeah, that was a pretty good test, and it's a nice start, but I think that, you know, you're leaving out these factors. We would do a lot better if we looked at these numbers over here. There's also this to consider, and if you put in, you know, if you put these things in, then that totally changes, you know, the formula, and then we can try that and we can refine. And to me, that would be making progress. Whereas, you know, giving people, you know, weed that you're going to heavily tax, and letting gays marry is not real change. I mean, it's like it might make a few people feel more comfortable in the meantime, but it doesn't change any of our fundamental problems. I don't know. To me, it just seems like, you know, there needs to be a lot more ways at really tracking our progress and figuring out if our progress is actually progress, and progress towards what. It just, you know, right now it's all just like people's biased opinions, and I think we need, you know, it's one thing to say, oh, we don't have these systems, but it seems like science has been working like this for a long time. You know, it's not necessarily as organized, and I'm definitely not arguing that, you know, we should get rid of government, or there shouldn't be organization, or that we could just do fine without that. I definitely don't think that's the case, but I think that we could, you know, that there already are a bunch of other people getting other things going. If we could, I guess for me, you know, I'm not even really that interested in whatever these political people are going to do. Like, they're going to do that, and that's fine. I am more interested in putting my energy into something that I feel like is actually going to create the kind of changes that we want to see. I'm not saying that they're necessarily mutually exclusive. I mean, if you could give me the chance to, you know, vote yes on weed, I would vote yes on weed. If you gave me the chance to vote yes on gay marriage, I would vote yes on gay marriage. But that doesn't mean that it was right because I voted yes. They should already be fucking legal for rational standards. It's only people's bias, ridiculous bullshit that keeps them from being that in the first place. So, I don't know. To me, to say, oh, vote, it's like, no, that's actually the problem. And as long as you keep on, you know, playing along with that and thinking that that's going to save you, the longer that you delude yourself and keep yourself from being able to make the kind of actual changes that we really want to see.
Right, but I mean, how do you get from society that needs to vote better to the one you just described? You know, the idea of, like, when you say we shouldn't have to vote on rights, that should be just a rational outcome. It's not, though. It's an emotional, marriage and shit are societal creations. Absent the standard that we, I mean, like,
I'm just saying there should be fair overarching standards. If we let these,
sure,
then
but like getting that kind of standard in place involves a hell of a lot more than getting people to vote, and we can't even do that shit.
Well, you know, if in this kind of government, if you had less people involved, you might even get more done. It actually might work better once you start including more hierarchical levels of structure where you have to try to coordinate the city with the state, with the country, with the world, and figuring out how to deal with the different levels of decision-making processes and getting those to resonate and stuff like that. That's fucking complicated. I think we got to start small, which we are, and you know, test it and grow it and refine it and make it better. And to me, even if that took 50 years, 100 years, that would still be a more worthwhile project than any of this shit we got going right now.
Sure. I just don't think that it's mutually exclusive to voting.
I agree. I agree.
I think that, like, the more progress that happens in the shitty political world, the more open people are going to be in the future to whatever. I don't think that frustration on people's part amounts to much. Since we shit on protest, you know, Occupy Wall Street did some shit, but very fucking little. We don't feel moved by any of those things, and I think in a more participatory environment, people would feel maybe more able to leverage the kind of change that you're talking about, and bring that into, like, as a model for other cities or something. I'm not saying don't do something parallel to it. Of course, do. But I'm still pissed that we're having to fight battles over as the social safety net gets gutted by the people that we voted back into office for their libertarian corporatist leanings and whatever else. Like, I don't think that. I think it makes it easier to get to a place where we would be open to alternate styles of governance. Because I don't think that we take seriously the frustration of the disenfranchised in our society, and I feel like if we felt more involved in a participatory way, being able to come up with our own systems or solutions or whatever, feeling less helpless, because I think that voting can be a discharge of emotions, and be like, well, I did my part, I voted, but if that's all you do, sure, that's not great. But I think that if you don't even feel like you can vote, if it's so hopeless that you can't even vote, then no one's going to be really willing to do kind of the heavy lifting of building a parallel system when they realize that even the basic fucking bullshit of the basic respect of, you know, common representation under the law and having your opinion matter whatso fucking ever is deprived of you. You know, like, I think in a lot of other countries, they feel like they can, you know, mold public projects better because they feel like the place they live represents them. They feel like they're part of it. I don't think most people feel like they're part of much.
Dude, I don't even know who I would vote for because I disagree with both of them and I slightly agree with both of them. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just like red shit or blue shit. Which one do you want? I'm just like, no shit, thank you. I don't know about that. And you know, I agree with you. I think that I think it's definitely possible to meet in the middle. I think that you could build a parallel system over here and do some tests with it and demonstrate that it's working on some things and start to integrate in some of those tools, and maybe eventually they could even dissolve into each other. I would much prefer something like that go down than, you know, this system collapse. But it seems to me that it will. That it's based on, you know, our money is debt, and it just grows and grows and grows, and the gap between, you know, the gap between rich and poor grows and grows and grows, and it seems like it's inevitable to be fucked. And I also wonder if what that would look like to make the transition and meet in the middle, because I think it might be so fundamentally different that you know, it's like, how would you, you know, transition capitalism into communism? It's just probably not going to happen.
Inevitably fucked is the name of my favorite porn. It's someone a man is chased for 6 days and nights by women who are wearing strap-ons. They chase him over hill and dale, and eventually he's too exhausted to move on after the 5th day, and they find him and they fuck him.
Like a porn hunting TV show.
Exactly. And he's wearing rabbit ears that are glued onto his head, his bald head. Speaking of which, do you think you can shave your head about a week from now?
Yeah, probably. Why?
Just no reason. Just completely unconnected reasons.
Do you think I would look good with funny ears?
Oh yeah. I mean,
all right.
As long as they kind of matched your hair, and they're pink on the inside, like you. Yeah, I mean, I think that whole process of improvement is a slow process, and I think that I mean, I think that you're right about debt and the gap between rich and poor, and I think that I would far prefer to see people get angry and involved and make changes before the floor falls out again. But I don't know if I see that happening.
I don't.
I saw a little bit of hope, maybe having the lesser of two evils in office. Charlie Crist was definitely the better of the two here than Rick Scott, because immediately he set about, gutting education more, and signing a harsh abortion bill into law.
I think part of the reason why I lost my time in politics is because one of the first elections that I took part in, the first election I took part in, Gore won the popular vote, and I saw that didn't mean anything. Then the next year, they freaking elected Bush back in again. And and you turn on Hulu or whatever, and the only freaking commercials you see are like, "Hi, I'm Tom Cotton. I'm in a hay field. Look at me. I won't stand for the status quo, and I remember what my family taught me." It's like, wasn't that probably the status quo? I don't know. He's like, and my opponent is on the side of Obama. You really want to vote with him? He's black.
Humans are fucking stupid apes. There's no way around that. We gotta start making better decisions and getting people to get behind them.
It's got to be bigger than just this cult of personality and this divisive team versus team bullshit. It's really getting us nowhere. Just like divide and conquer.
How do we get to a new place, though? That's always been my question. I think we need to be making better decisions in a better way. But I think trying to move us away from voting, like saying that voting is antithetical to the process of progress, I think is wrong. I think it's part of a broader package of progress.
I would say that I wouldn't say that it's necessarily a moving away from progress. I think as the general altitude of the society grows, definitely votes get better, but votes For what? Towards what end? I would say that I don't think that it's necessarily progress.
No, it's not necessarily progress, but I think that moving away from the voting process leaves people feel even more disempowered, like they're giving up even trying to change anything because even the most basic unit of participation means nothing.
What I'm talking about would actually be a much more empowering process because it's not just a yay or nay on some shit. It would actually be able to, and I would say even more, you'd have even more say now because you could comment about anything and everything, and there would be, you know, an obligation in that system that tension be processed, and then you get some kind of feedback about it. Either you're going to hear that other people have already said what you said, and this is what we said to them, or that there are other people that agree with you, and this is what we're going to do about it, or this is the first we've heard of it, and this is a really good piece of information. Like, I think good ideas can come from anywhere, and that we just really need to have some kind of a rational way of engaging with them, you know, beyond just preference, but actually making tests and refining and like having a model so far, and then using tests and tensions to refine that model towards those ends. I think that people's feedback is of utmost importance in being able to decide whether it's a functional fit. That's the validity claim for the lower right quadrant, is functional fit. Like, does it really seem like it's, you know, that it's functioning and it's working for people? And I think part of the information that is going to be crucial to be important as one of the factors, the factual, scientific factors that we include in being able to decide whether our systems are functional and fitting or not, is by getting people's phenomenological reports. We need to hear what people's experiences are. And I mean, think about just in a company. You know, I worked at Barnes & Noble for a while, and you know, the corporate people, they really had no freaking idea at all what it was to like deal with the person in front of you as like a cashier or something like that. And they were never like asking us for our feedback. I mean, if you had professional salesmen who were working on the floor with your customers every single day, and they're developing tactics and things like that to better push the things that you want to get going, wouldn't you be interested to hear if they had any ideas about, you know, ways that we could sell more products or we could push more things? Or, you know, I mean, the way to get better is to engage with tension and have some kind of a rational scientific process to measure success by some standards and criteria. And until then, it is just going to be red team versus blue team, and, you know, yay or nay. And to me, that doesn't make me feel heard at all, because I'm not interested in that, really. Like, I mean, there's some things I guess I could go yay or nay on, but I don't really know if they're actually good or not.
Right. I don't think we disagree on any of the things that you said.
I thought you said you disagree.
I think eventually that's the goal. I just think voting is a help rather than a hindrance in the meantime.
All right, word.
But yeah, I think that that's food for thought. We can come back and have like a more in-depth discussion on that in the future, a more formalized one where we're not all echoey and eating soup in the background. David and I don't disagree on anything. It's just the time of propriety.
Yeah. All right.
I think I made it blur.
Philosophical Conversations with Kevin and David. Join us
I disagree.
as we discuss our topic.
The effect of information on belief.
Say more. Like what?
The idea of how much value do we actually give to facts, and can facts change behavior? What's the gap between analytic psychology and practical psychology? Look at addiction and cognitive biases and try to figure out what things that affect our thinking that we don't know about, and we expect that we're making direct, agentive, and well-rationed decisions, but rather are at the mercy of evolutionary, hormonal, and environmental factors.
Next time on our show with Kevin and we're going to talk about if our rational ideas and reasons will actually help us to be able to do the important things that we need to do in life, or if we are just going to be carried away on the whim and the wind of our whim to the end which we like.
You, my friend, are money. Yeah.
Okay.
Human beings are not rational fuckers.
Say goodnight, Kevin. Aww.
Good night, interwebs.
Say again.
Good night, interwebs.
Will you read me a bedtime story, clown man? Huh, please?
I will tell you the story
Tell me the story.
of humanity.
Human? Like a dog?
Just like a dog,
Haha.
but with more butt sniffing.
Good night, interweb.
Philosophical conversation with Kevin and David. Philosophical conversation. Philosophical conversations with Kevin and David.